Okay, let's move on to the brace drill. Right off the bat, I'm going to say why I like the brace drill. One of the reasons why I like the brace drill so much. They must have made these by the millions, if not the tens of millions. Maybe a lot of those millions did not survive, but frankly, an awful lot of the millions did survive. And because there are so many survivors, they are readily found and usually fairly economical. So that means that you don't have to have just one. In fact, what you can see here are 7 brace drills, and that represents most of the ones I've got. I've actually got 9 in total. So what you can do, one thing that you could do then is have more than one and do what I've done. This brace has nothing in the chuck. This is the standard brace I pick up when I need to drill a hole, so it's going to get an auger bit of varying sizes. This brace has a twist drill combination countersink bit in it. This one has a 3/8 inch socket drive. This one has a Phillips driver bit in it. This one has a square driver bit in it. This one has a countersink, and this one has a little spoke pointer in it, like if you want to trim off the corners of a dowel so that it goes into the hole more easily, which is sometimes quite a useful feature. So there you have it. I've got brace drills dedicated to particular functions. All right, now while we've got them out, let's just take a look. Brace drills are categorized by swing. So the swing is the diameter of the circle that is made when it's rotated. So that one is a 10-inch circle, and that means that this distance is a 5-inch radius. You can get other sizes, although they're less common. This one is an 8-inch swing, and the reason I've got the countersink twist drill bit in it is this bit does not need as much torque as many other things. So the smaller swing gives less torque, and it is more appropriate for this particular implement, that twist drill countersink bit. On the other hand, I've got a 3/8 inch socket drive here, and often you're going to be, needing some heft with a socket drive, and so I've got it in a brace with a 12-inch swing, 6-inch radius. The rest, so we've got a 10-inch swing, 10-inch swing, 10-inch swing, and another 8-inch swing. Obviously the spoke pointer doesn't need much torque. Actually, the countersink doesn't need much torque, but most of the, 10-inch is by far and away the most common brace you're going to find. And lastly, then driving screws certainly need some torque, and so these are both 10-inch versions. Now, most all of these are made with a 2-jaw chuck, which accepts a sort of standard square tang, sort of a square tapered shank bit. In this case, an auger bit. And so that is going to be most of what you find out there. But occasionally you find one that is what's called a universal chuck. And I don't know if we'll be able to see this on the camera. I'll go ahead and take the square drive bit out of it. in this case, you can see that the jaws are the same inside, but on the outside here, instead of just having two V grooves, it has a series of notched, it's sort of like, I don't even know how to describe it, but this one, because of the unique shape of these jaws, actually will take a round shank or hex shank or anything. So that's why this would be called a universal chuck. Okay, let me put the square drive back in. That is probably really, there is one more thing I should say, and that is that most of these have some sort of ratcheting mechanism on them. So you turn it one way, it'll go that way. You put the little lever in the other direction, it'll go that way. And so you can either tighten or loosen or lock the chuck. And quite a large number of the brace drills out there will have some variation on this. These all are the same brands, they have the same type. Often they'll have this little rotating thing here that sets the ratcheting mechanism. Maybe get a little closer look at it on this one. You can see, rotate around like that for one direction, rotate around like that for the other direction. In between for locking it. Okay, now we're going to say a quick bit about a quick little bit about the drill bits that are used with these. Drills or augers come in two flavors for a brace drill, or at least two flavors. Very standard is the auger type drill bit, which has spiral flutes, a little snail or little screw, which is called a snail here at the end, wings here that etch a circle as it's going around, and cutting edges that lift the wood out of the hole as it's rotating. Probably easier to see rather than describe. Hopefully we can see it on camera relatively well. Now it's going to be hard, when you've got that auger in the standard 10-inch brace, it's about 18 inches worth of drill bit, so it's hard to get it all in the picture, but it's going through the pine nicely. Now, if there was one downside there's a downside, a potential downside, and an upside. The upside is that when you're drilling, you have magnificent sensory feedback for how well the drill is cutting. Whether the lead screw is still engaged in the wood, whether it's actually cutting, you can see if it's pulling out chips. All of that is excellent and much nicer than a power drill. The bad part is that sometimes, if you wanted to use it upright like this, it can sometimes be difficult to maintain enough leverage. The sort of ideal way to use these is to have the pad, which is, of course, this part, either braced against your shoulder or braced against your gut, so that you can put your body weight behind it and make sure that the the end of the drill stays engaged in the wood. But can be a downside then, is that, like, if you're going vertically like this, you know, your top of your bench is just too high to make that happen, and you may have to either rearrange it so that you can drill in horizontally, or, you know, stand on a little stool so that you can put your body weight on top of it. So pros and cons to everything, I guess. We'll try it in the walnut here. Doing well, still engaged. I can feel everything is working like it should. Reverse to back out. Doing fine. Now, another thing to watch out for is, if you're buying these auger bits can have either a fine thread or a coarse thread for the snail, this part right here. Fine threads are more for hardwoods. Coarse threads are more for softwoods, like pine. I actually only have the fine threads, and you could see that it was working just fine in pine, so that's something to consider. And so there's your auger bits. The other type of bit is more resembling a twist drill, but still with a tapered square shank on the other end. And I like these a lot. One thing I should say is both types of bit can be sharpened, and can be sharpened by anybody. Does not require it to be taken to a specialist. That said, this type is a little more easy to sharpen than the auger type, especially for smaller drills. The other thing about this kind of drill is you find them a lot more often. You cover the smaller sizes a lot better. As you can see here, I've numbered these in terms of 30 seconds. That's actually a tip for the potential user. The last thing you want to do, most bits have the size etched on the shank, and often, so there you can easily see that that's a 12. So that one's okay, but an awful lot of them are practically illegible. And so you want to make yourself some kind of system where you can easily identify the drill, because that's one way that it will, turn you off to using brace drills, is if you have to fumble every time to now these guys, especially in this size bit, tends to be a little bit more of aggressive cut, and a little bit maybe a slightly less cleaner hole than the auger type. But this is the biggest one of these that I've got, so that may be just a function of the size. The small ones work immaculately. So you can see that we're doing very nicely in the walnut too. It'll go all the way through if I just keep at it. But it cuts pretty fast, actually. You can see I sunk that one in up to about there in just a few seconds. Okay, so there's your drill bits. They work great, especially the auger style makes clean holes. It's easier to get the auger style. One thing about the auger bits is you cover large diameter holes much more easily, and frankly more easy than a lot of the power tool alternatives, so that's a nice feature. And that's about all I'm going to say. Give a quick, here's the countersink. Just, it just plunges right in there and cuts. And there, So that was fast. Just a plain old countersink. Let's see, do I have any? Here we go. All that works well. And the last thing I want to say before we go away from brace drills is probably an underappreciated feature of using a brace drill. You notice, as I said before, I have driver bits in 2 of these because these are really nice for driving screws. So here's my square drive bit. And again, it's that sensory feedback that makes this so nice. Goes in quick, but when you get to the end, you can really tell right when you've got it just the right, that it's so perfect that you know exactly when it's tight because of the sensory feedback on these. So one thing I would encourage people to try is to try these as drivers, in cases where it's important that you not break off a screw or go all the way through the wood or whatnot. So at any rate, that pretty much sums up what I like about the brace drill bits. One thing that I didn't quite cover on yet, you saw me drilling. Another nice feature about these is that it's very easy to control your depth with these. That's actually another quite positive feature. Because you have not so much torque as a big 18 or 20 volt electric drill, you're just not as likely to blow out, go too far, blow out the other side, or do any of that sort of thing, which is so common with a power drill. Okay, enough on brace drills. Up next is an Archimedes drill. This is a North Brothers number 50. It's called an Archimedes drill because it has grooves in the shaft. The handle has a pin in it that rides in the groove. The handle doesn't turn, so the pin makes the curved groove turn the shaft and do the drilling action. The nice feature about this one is moving it down turns the shaft clockwise, moving it up turns the shaft clockwise. So it's always doing the drilling action that you want it to do, which is definitely efficient. It does that, of course, because there are grooves in both directions here. I'm not a big fan of these, mainly because, for example, this drill will only take the maximum is 3/16, and so it's only for small drill sizes. A 3/16 actually won't work very well because you just don't develop very much torque with these things. But at this size, what I've got in there now is 7/64. That works okay. And so you drill your hole, it's okay. But, basically that makes for limitations. And I gave this a serious try one time, and I never really caught on to it because of it's hard to get enthusiastic about a drill that you only use in a small fraction of your holes that you need to drill. And so I'm, like I say, not a fan, and that's about all I'm going to say. This is a breast drill. It's basically a large glorified egg beater drill, in that you turn the handle and the pinion gears turn the chuck. They're easily recognizable because they always have some kind of breastplate here that is, you know, certainly obviously intended to be pressed against with some portion of your anatomy. This one has a nice feature. This is a Stanley, let's see, consult the notes. This is a Stanley 243. It's got one nice feature, is it's got a little level built into it, which is nice. You actually are almost always going to use this in a horizontal fashion, and so you can watch the bubble on the level and make sure that you are in fact truly horizontal. So that's a nice feature. This particular one, and I think most of them, I'm not 100% sure. This is a standard 2-jaw chuck made for a standard tapered square shank auger bit or any other square shank bit. I am not, you know, so there's pros and cons with this one as much as any other hand-powered drill. The pro is that you can develop a lot of torque with this. It has 2 speeds. On the low speed, you've got a lot of oomph to turn the chuck. The con is that this thing is 18 inches long probably. I actually haven't measured it, but when the auger, well, let's just go ahead and install the auger bit. Okay, so with all said and done, that's a pretty solid 24 inches there. And so, and you can't even see it on camera because it's so big. I'm not going to back up the camera. You know, you can sort of get an idea of the length of this thing. So if you're trying to drill vertically and press the breastplate against some portion of your anatomy, then you got to be pretty far above this bench to do that. And so if you're going to use it vertically and use it as intended, probably your workpiece is going to have to be on a low stool of some sort. The alternative is, of course, to use it vertically, as I said, and it's actually nicely set up for doing that. So you put it up there, watch your level bubble, rest the breastplate against your ample gut, and start turning. And in this fashion, in this mode, you know, it just works like a champ. And I even have it on the high speed here, and I'm not having any trouble turning the bit. You can see how much I drilled in that short amount of time. Holy smokes, probably about half the distance of the flutes. So this is that's really probably about all I need to say about that thing. But because of the sort of limitations in the geometry there, I just haven't been able to I haven't really been able to make this, you know, one of my go-to users. Just not that enthusiastic about it. You know, it's the kind of thing, I'm nice I have one of them. It occasionally comes in handy, like if I have to drill a, you know, perfectly square hole in something so that I can watch the level and make sure that I'm plumb to the surface of whatever I'm drilling. Comes in handy at that point, but otherwise, yeah. My other, you know, it just doesn't, it's just not as useful as the brace drill collection or the eggbeater collection. That's nothing wrong with it, just not as universally useful. In conclusion, basically I liked the eggbeater drill and the brace drill. And especially in the latter case, in the brace drill, you have a multitude of potential uses, and it does pretty well with all of them. Didn't like the push drill, very limited use case. The breast drill gives you lots of power, but it's just every single hole you make, you're going to have to set it up in such a way that you're using the breast drill directly to make the hole. That can be limiting. And lastly, the Archimedes drill just doesn't have a lot of torque, and at least the ones that I've got, most of them are, you know, limited to fairly small bits. One thing I should, I said at the beginning of this video is I think there's a couple of critical success factors. One is, as I mentioned, always go for a larger tool with more torque. It's easy to use that tool with less effort, such i.e. to not take advantage of all that torque. It's easy to do that and then have the torque when you need it, versus the opposite case where you're going to be under torqued when you need to do a particular operation. So I think that's what some people probably, that might be the mistake some people make, is that they just don't have the torque they need, and then they end up not liking the tool. The second critical success factor is you have to get decent drill bits. Certainly the egg beaters will all take a round shank drill bit, and what I found is I used to have lots of drill bits from the big box store or some other stores that should know better. I threw them all away. If you just have got to have decent quality bits. It was almost well, it wasn't a life-changing experience, but I ran across these on Amazon. It's a set of, you know, the small size, I think 1/16 or something, up to 1/4 inch. I'll put a reference to it below. Made by a company called Chicago Latrobe, and allegedly made in the USA drill bits. These things have been fantastic, and I am not affiliated with these guys at all, so this is an unpaid advertisement, no sponsorship of any sort, but I love these things, and they have made my use of hand drills, you know, a night and day difference. So basically, make sure you have enough torque, and make sure you've got the best drill bits that you can buy, especially for the hole drilling operations. And so that's about it. One thing I was going to mention that I forgot is we did not cover these. This is also a push type tool, but these are actually more screwdrivers, automatic screwdrivers, than they are automatic drills. So didn't put that into the list today. And that's about it. So I hope you liked this video. If you did like it, please consider subscribing. Please leave comments in the comments section, and by all means hit the like button. So without further ado, we'll see you next time on Mark's Woodworking Challenges.